This child is mine. I want us to build a happy life together as a family.
My husband, James, sobbed as he held my sister, Rachel, and their daughter, pleading with me. Here are the divorce papers.
Are you smiling? You really are tough.
Well, you see, as I delivered the shocking news with a smile, James started to lose it. My name is Catherine. I'm 33 years old. I've been married to my husband, James, who's the same age, for 5 years. However, the relationship between me and James hasn't been a good one. The reason is that we've struggled to have a child.
We're finally going to have a baby. Thank you, Catherine.
Yes, I'm so glad we kept trying. Just when we were celebrating after a positive result on a quick test, we found out it was a misdiagnosis. Our disappointment hit hard. If only I had double-checked. Then maybe James and I would be happier now. We've kept trying, but ever since then, things have been tense between James and me. If we have a baby soon, things between us will get better. James and I only exchange the minimum conversation, and he's been coming home late. I want a baby just as much as he does. Trying to conceive has been exhausting, making it hard to keep working, so I started working part-time, but I can't help feeling down. Still, I hold on to the hope that having a baby will make things better, so I keep pushing forward. Then one day, I got news that my older sister, Rachel, had given birth. We went to visit my parents, but as soon as we entered the house, I heard something unbelievable.
This child is mine. I've wanted a child for so long. It's my dream come true. I want to build a life with the three of us. Please, let's get a divorce.
What are you saying? Shockingly, James admitted he'd been having an affair with Rachel and claimed he was the father of my niece.
I knew Catherine was your wife, but I'm so sorry.
Rachel, what are you talking about?
Are you telling me you've been cheating? And you, James, how could you do this while being married to Catherine?
My parents stared in disbelief, their voices filled with shock.
I'm truly sorry, but I just wanted a child so badly. My parents are also eager for a grandchild. And while I know Catherine is trying, I can't stand the thought of giving up on having kids.
James clung to my niece, pleading tearfully.
Still, that doesn't make cheating okay.
You knew exactly what you were doing, didn't you, Rachel? Why would you go through with an affair like that?
Well, he was so stressed about not being able to have a child with Catherine, and I just wanted to cheer him up since he's her husband. But then I started to fall for him. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself.
I looked on blankly at the chaos unfolding around me. To be honest, I could believe that Rachel was the other woman. She always had a habit of switching boyfriends and even snuck around on them back then. Rachel had been into playing around with guys since she was young. When we were in high school together, her constantly changing boyfriends was pretty much her reputation. How many boyfriends has she had by now? What's the point of dating so many people if they all just come and go? We used to be close when we were kids. Sure, she's pretty and has a bright, easygoing personality, so plenty of guys probably wanted to date her. But what's the point of breaking up so soon afterward? But around this time, I started to feel uncomfortable with her behavior, and it became harder to get along with her. Rachel's behavior only got worse, and when I saw her after she'd started living on her own in college, I was shocked by how much she'd changed since high school. You look amazing.
There are so many fashionable people in college, you know, so I have to keep up. You should try it too. I know makeup and clothes cost money, but it pays off.
Did you start working in retail or something? Do they give bonuses if you make enough sales? I was curious about how she was earning money, so I asked her more about it.
No, nothing like that. You don't make much at regular jobs, but there are people out there who want to talk to and have dinner with someone pretty. They give me money as a thank you.
People really do that? And you make enough just by doing that?
Yep. They're mostly wealthy guys. They're just happy to spend time with me, and some even give pretty good money just for that. A lot of people are into it because it pays well, though you do need to know how to pick the right people.
Interesting, but I'm not very good at socializing, so I don't think it's for me. When I first heard about it, I felt uneasy, but I didn't fully understand and just thought to myself that jobs like that exist. So I looked it up online to learn more about it. Sure, she's in college, so it's normal to want to look nice, but this isn't just some job. Is she seriously doing a sugar baby thing? When she says everyone's doing it, is she really hanging around people like that? Finding out it was basically like working at a nightclub, I felt totally fed up with Rachel's fascination with guys. A few years ago, Rachel got married only to get divorced within the year. Sure, he seemed wealthy, but for her spending habits to spiral out of control and lead to a divorce. What was she even spending it on? She used to manage well on a limited budget. I always thought it was impressive how she could handle her finances, given how often she dated and had expenses. Rachel had once taught me how to look good on a budget, and I admired her for working hard to make the best of her limited allowance. It felt like something I could try too. I didn't agree with her obsession with men, but at least she was putting in effort. But somewhere along the way, Rachel developed a spending habit, and I became more and more disillusioned with how she'd changed. She didn't cheat during her last marriage, but she spent so much money. And maybe she's with James because he has a steady, well-paying job at a big company, which would mean she wouldn't have to worry about money. Besides, when she's single, she sneaks around with other men. I wonder if this child is even really James's. James, who is inexperienced in relationships and somewhat serious, probably fell for Rachel's charms and experience. But I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him. No wonder he's been spending less time at home, and his expenses have gone up. I thought he was just eating and sleeping at home, but the amount he was spending on meals seemed excessive. I noticed he was more concerned with his appearance, but I assumed it was because of his work in sales. Maybe those business trips weren't real either. The excitement we felt over the initial pregnancy test was quickly replaced with disappointment.
It wasn't real? Well, I hear that sometimes happens early on, so maybe it couldn't be helped.
Sorry, I must have misunderstood.
It's not your fault, Catherine.
Even though James tried to comfort me, I could tell he was disappointed too. At first, I think he was simply coming home late because he felt awkward around me. Our conversations got shorter. I didn't want to bother him, so I spoke less. And over time, he got home later and cut conversations short when I tried to talk. We only talked when absolutely necessary. We used to have so much fun talking together, so it was painful to feel so distant. Since he was coming home late, we stopped having dinner together, and mornings were too rushed to have a meaningful conversation. He used to comment on the meals, but now he says nothing. I tried making different dishes to get a reaction, but he still didn't say anything. I've shed countless tears over James's indifferent attitude. But we're still trying for a child, so I'm sure James is just frustrated. Maybe he doesn't talk because he's afraid he'll end up blaming me. Once I get pregnant, we'll be able to enjoy each other's company again like we used to. Despite everything, I still wish to start fresh with James.
I want my parents to have a grandchild. I know I've been unfaithful, but please, I'm begging you, let's get divorced.
But the reality was clear. He'd cheated with Rachel and didn't seem to have any regrets left for me. Seeing James pleading through tears, I knew there was no going back for us. He must have known Rachel was pregnant and that the child was his, right? So why didn't he ask for a divorce sooner? If he was going to say all this, he could have left earlier. Does he even understand how hard I tried? I was furious inside, but couldn't voice it. All I could do was fight back my tears, refusing to show any weakness in front of James and Rachel. James kept trying to persuade me, but his words were all over the place.
I've always longed for a life with my own child. You were amazing, Catherine, but not being able to have a child. It became too hard for me. It made me want to blame you, even though I know it wasn't your fault. I know I'm being selfish, but there's no telling if we'll ever have kids, and it just hurts to stay together. Then Rachel gave me a child. I'll make amends for cheating, I will. But now that I'm a father, I want to be responsible for my child. Please, let me be a father.
James's voice wavered with tears as he spoke with intensity, and Rachel, on the verge of tears herself, added,
Catherine, I feel terrible about this, but I want to protect my family this time, and I know I can do it with James. Now that we have our child, please, let us try.
Despite their desperate pleas, none of it touched my heart. If I don't agree to a divorce now, I'll just look like the villain. The whole time I'd been trying to save our marriage, James had been betraying me. How much I've endured, trying my hardest, while he was out there having a good time with Rachel. What was all that time for? All I felt was emptiness. I was too stunned to respond, but my parents were furious at the two of them.
You think an apology will make up for your selfishness? People who run to an affair when things get tough can't be good parents. How could you do this while being married to Catherine? It's impossible.
James, you promised to make Catherine happy. And Rachel, don't pretend you'll do better. You're just saying what sounds good.
My parents were absolutely enraged with James and Rachel. Listening to everyone's shouts, I started to feel sick from my shock. I need some time. I'm overwhelmed and need to think. I left the room, escaping the chaos of yelling voices. I hate cheaters. I knew in my head that breaking up with James was the right choice, but my emotions weren't keeping up, and the tears I'd been holding back started to fall. I didn't want to think about anything, but I washed my face with cold water, trying to calm myself. That helped. Yes, staying with James will only bring more pain. He might think divorcing me and starting a life with his child will make him happy, but it won't be that simple. I was certain that James and Rachel would eventually face consequences for their actions. With that thought, I finally found peace. All right then, let's just get divorced already. I don't want to see James or Rachel's faces anymore. With that, I printed out the divorce papers using my dad's computer. When I filed my marriage certificate, I never thought I'd get divorced for being cheated on. Feeling a pang of sadness at the memory, I filled in my part and went back to the room.
Oh, Catherine.
Let's get divorced. Sign the papers. When I returned and cut James off, telling him with a smile, he looked shocked.
Are you sure? Is this really okay?
You're the one who asked for a divorce. And honestly, I can't live with someone who cheated on me. So yes, I'm sure. But I expect alimony from you.
Of course. I'm truly sorry it came to this. I'm really sorry.
James signed the divorce papers. You chose Rachel over me, so make sure you take full responsibility for her.
I will. I'll do my best to make her happy.
You broke Catherine's marriage, Rachel, so you'd better be responsible in this one. Raising a child isn't easy, so make sure you two help each other.
Raising a child is hard work. Don't even think about giving up on it. You understand?
Yeah, I get it.
This time, we'll really protect our family.
James and Rachel nodded firmly as they cuddled together.
We're going to raise our baby together.
Yeah, let's build a happy family.
They exchanged a smile, already seemingly in their own world. Are they actually sorry? They looked remorseful just moments ago, but now it seems they've already moved on. Then again, Rachel has never been one to worry about details. She broke promises with me and even damaged my stuff without a second thought. And while I told her I wasn't bothered, she was always too quick to shrug things off. And now James is showing the same attitude. Are they actually sorry for cheating? I hadn't fully processed my feelings, but seeing the two of them like this left me exasperated. I'll submit these divorce papers first thing in the morning.
Yeah, please do.
We can discuss the alimony details later, right? Let's have a proper conversation about it soon. Though I knew it would be better to settle it right away, I felt too drained to tackle it today.
All right.
Make sure you pay the alimony as agreed, all right?
And Rachel, even if you have to sell your things, make sure Catherine gets what she deserves.
Understood.
After reminding them firmly, we parted ways for the day.
I'll pick up my stuff from the house tomorrow after work.
With that, James left with Rachel, heading back to her place. Couldn't they act a bit more remorseful? It's obvious he feels guilty, but he's practically bouncing with excitement. Annoyed by James and Rachel's behavior, I headed home alone. James was hardly ever home, and we'd stopped talking, so the quiet in the house doesn't feel strange at all. When we first moved in, I was filled with happiness at finally being married, but looking back, it wasn't exactly a great marriage. If he's coming tomorrow to get his things, I'll just have everything packed up and shove it at him as soon as he arrives. I'm done with cheaters. At least tomorrow's my day off, so I can wrap this up quickly. Though my emotions were still a mess, I felt calmer after a night's sleep. The divorce papers are filed, so James and I are officially strangers now. It's time to focus on my life and enjoy it. No more getting dragged down by James and Rachel. I started looking forward to my future. In the evening, James arrived in his work suit after finishing for the day.
Thanks for filing the divorce papers. I was able to submit my marriage license with Rachel.
James reported this with an awkward expression. He mentioned he couldn't wait to marry her just yesterday, so that was fast. He's definitely thrilled. Whatever, let's just get this over with. Oddly, hearing he'd married Rachel didn't sting at all. Oh, I see. Good for you. I've packed most of your things, so you can go through them. I've also listed what needs to be taken care of for the divorce, so let's get that settled. James seemed taken aback by how composed I was after yesterday's events.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
He replied with a downcast look and started checking his things. We then sat across from each other at the living room table to go over the post-divorce arrangements. The discussion was going smoothly, and finally, James seemed unable to hold back and spoke up.
It's impressive how you can talk about all this with a smile. If I were the one cheated on, I'd be completely useless for a while.
And you're the one who cheated. What are you even talking about? That's what I thought, but when I looked at James and Rachel, it somehow made it easier to smile. Well, Rachel is a bit of a cheater after all. Honestly, I think you two are a perfect match if you both have that kind of mindset. I, on the other hand, could never live like that.
What?
Don't worry, she doesn't cheat after marriage. But when it's just dating, she doesn't see a problem with it. I had a hard time because people would think I was as casual about relationships as she was, and I'd sometimes get approached by odd people. I started feeling uncomfortable around Rachel when people started assuming I was like her because of her behavior. I guess it was typical in high school. Lots of people were curious about relationships. Even so, I didn't like it. Now I can look back on it as just a memory.
What?
James looked like he was struggling to process what I'd said. Rachel probably kept her flings hidden well, so he found it hard to believe. I bet she didn't show any signs. Rachel can fool a lot of people. Well, now that there's a child, he'll need some guidance on how to manage things. Feeling a bit sorry for him, I decided to give James a heads up on how to handle Rachel. Once she stops cheating, she starts spending more instead. So expect her expenses to go up beyond what's needed for raising the child. You'll have to keep a close eye on the money, or you might find your savings drained without realizing it. I had worried when Rachel first mentioned getting married. Can someone who's comfortable cheating even stay married? I thought it was only a matter of time before her husband would end up divorcing her over an affair. I didn't think Rachel was serious about marriage, so I made it clear. Rachel, do you even understand what marriage is? It's not like your other relationships. You can't just leave whenever you want. And cheating is absolutely not okay. If you're going to get married, you'd better plan to make him happy. I didn't trust her when it came to relationships, so I was blunt. She laughed and replied,
What do you take me for? I'm not going to cheat if I get married. Besides, some of the people I dated before were just for the money. I'm not dumb enough to mess around if I know it'll cause trouble.
Her reasoning wasn't conventional, but at least she didn't seem inclined toward infidelity. Her logic is odd, but maybe she'll manage to make her marriage work without cheating. Though her need for money does worry me, but her new husband has a good income, so it should be okay. I felt reassured by that, but later found out she had turned into a spender instead of a cheater.
She's your sister, right? How can you talk about her like that?
It seemed James couldn't believe Rachel would act that way and wanted to think I was just being harsh. It's just the truth. If you don't believe me, you can ask my parents. They went through a lot when she got divorced over her spending habits. And after she got married, her sense of money got strange, and she'd sometimes come asking them for cash.
No way.
Didn't she ever ask you for things like, "Can you buy this for me?"
Well,
James's face started to pale, realizing he'd probably been financially supporting her without noticing.
but I don't think she's cheated on me. She didn't act like she was seeing anyone else.
He was clearly in denial about her tendency to cheat. Without any concrete evidence, I couldn't press further. If that's what you want to believe, then fine. A DNA test will clear things up. If you really believe the child is yours, then you don't need to check. Some things are better left unknown. And besides, you're married to Rachel now, right? So you're going to take responsibility. Even if it turns out that child isn't yours, you'll still take responsibility as a father, right? You begged me for a divorce after all. As James sat in stunned silence, I added something even more shocking. Oh, and I need you to sign this document too.
What's this? Wait,
I need you to acknowledge this child I'm carrying. If you do, I won't ask for child support.
What? A child?
I handed him the acknowledgement form, and James stammered in confusion.
Are you pregnant? Isn't this another mistake?
I'm 7 weeks along. I got a positive result on a home test, but since last time was a misdiagnosis, I had it checked at the hospital. It's confirmed. When I told him, James stared at my stomach in shock.
Really? But weren't you infertile?
I was never infertile. What gave you that idea?
But you were undergoing fertility treatments.
It seemed James had somehow convinced himself that I was infertile. When I went for the first test, I was told everything was fine. Did you forget? They said it was just a timing issue. I even have the report if you want to see it. I handed the medical report to James, who looked at it in disbelief. James stared at it intently.
It's true. But then, why didn't you tell me sooner? If I'd known, I never would have decided on a divorce.
James sounded almost accusatory, blaming me for not telling him. You weren't around to listen. James was hardly ever home. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought it might save our relationship, so I held back my excitement and tried to find a chance to tell him. Hey, I have something I want to talk about.
I have plans right now.
With a cold glance, James brushed me off and left the house. I guess I won't be able to tell him about my pregnancy, but we're going to my parents' house together this weekend, so maybe I can share the news then with everyone there. But when the weekend came, before I could say a word, James told me he was having an affair with Rachel and wanted a divorce. Does he even know how much I went through holding out hope for a child? He thought he was the only one struggling. I felt so sick with shock that I ran to the bathroom, where my mild nausea from morning sickness hit me full force. But it was at that moment that I decided. If being with me is so hard for him, then fine. I don't want a life with someone who would cheat with Rachel. He'll regret not being able to raise our child. I made up my mind to keep him out of my child's life. I might struggle without child support, but it's worth it to make sure he doesn't get to see this child. My dislike for James outweighed any worry about facing life as a single mother. I don't want you involved with this child, so I won't be needing child support. You can put all your income toward Rachel and her baby instead. When I said this flatly, James started shouting.
What? If you'd told me you were pregnant, I never would have left you and married Rachel.
He was on the verge of a breakdown, but that wasn't my concern anymore. I don't know whose baby that child of Rachel's really is, but you must have a good guess, right? If I'd known you were cheating, I wouldn't have tried to stop you from remarrying. I have no intention of staying married to a cheater.
I didn't know Rachel was a cheater, or that she was so wasteful. If I'd known, I never would have cheated. She's your sister. You could have told me.
Why would I tell you something like that? It's not like you were dating, and I only saw her occasionally. Cheating and wasting money didn't concern me then. Besides, you're married to her now, and you even promised my parents you'd take responsibility. No point in saying this isn't what you wanted. It's too late.
I never thought. She might not be carrying my child. If I'd known, I wouldn't have divorced you, Catherine.
James began regretting it all, but it was far too late.
Look, I'll pay child support just. When the baby is born, let me see them.
James was practically begging for a chance to meet the baby, but I wasn't having it. I don't want anything more to do with you two, so I don't need child support. Just acknowledge the child.
If I can't see them, why would I acknowledge them?
It's the child who'll suffer if their father doesn't acknowledge them. So you're fine with making your own child miserable? That just makes me want to keep you away even more. Although James tried to argue, he eventually signed the documents agreeing to pay alimony and acknowledged the child without further involvement.
Can't we talk this over?
There's nothing left for us to discuss. We're done here, so please leave. Even after that, James lingered, but I managed to get him out of the house. Later, I received the alimony payments from both James and Rachel. I had all the evidence, so it's a relief to get more than the typical alimony amount. I honestly doubted Rachel had enough saved, but she managed, and now I don't have to deal with either of them again. I had been worried they'd try to delay the payments, so seeing them come through brought me peace of mind. After that, James went ahead with a DNA test.
What? Then whose kid is it?
You were questioning it all along? You were the one who claimed the child was yours.
That's because I didn't know you were seeing anyone else. Don't mess with me. If it's not my kid, I wouldn't have married you.
It turned out the child wasn't James after all.
Look, once the baby is born, can I at least see them? I want to hold my own child, just once. Please.
I already said no. James had reached out, unloading his woes, then asking to see my baby, but I saw no reason to entertain his request. You're already married to Rachel, even if there's no blood relation. Legally, that child is yours. You chose to remarry, so don't act like you didn't expect this.
If I'd known, I would never have remarried.
Well, you did, so don't bother me, a total stranger to you now. Realizing this conversation wasn't going anywhere, I ended the call and blocked his number. I might not be able to work later on, so I should save up while I can. It'll be a busy time ahead. There wasn't a trace of regret left for James. I renewed my determination to work hard for myself and my baby. Afterward, I moved out of the house where I lived with him. I can't risk him showing up unannounced just because he can't reach me anymore. However, it seemed that they had other issues to deal with. Rachel had been overspending again.
Why are you spending so much? I told you there's barely anything left after paying alimony.
It's just that raising a kid is so exhausting.
Exhausting? And what does that have to do with all these expenses?
It turned out that, stressed from raising a child, Rachel had been buying designer bags and clothes, leading to debt. As a result, they ended up in debt, and James was now struggling with work and parenting while constantly arguing with Rachel. For now, it seems he hasn't given up and is doing his best to manage. As for me, I safely delivered the baby with my parents' support, starting as a full-time employee, but it'll still be a challenge to raise my child. I'll do my best to move up so we never have to worry about money. I explained my situation to my workplace, and they welcomed me as a full-time employee. It'll be hard as a single mom, but everyone at work is understanding and kind, so I think I can make this work. Despite the challenges, I felt more determined than ever to be the protective mother I'd always wanted to be.